Hello, and welcome to English Flow, the podcast where we help you speak English naturally and confidently. I'm Maya, and I'm here with my co-host Alex. Hey everyone, I'm Alex, and we're thrilled to have you joining us today. Whether you're commuting to work, taking a break, or exercising, we've got some fantastic strategies to help you overcome speaking anxiety and communicate more freely. So, if you've ever felt tongue-tied when speaking English, this episode is absolutely for you. I think everyone can relate to this, right? You know when you're at a coffee shop and the barista asks, "Would you like anything else?" And suddenly you panic. You know exactly what you want to say, but your mind starts racing. Should I say, "No thank you," or "That's all"? You freeze completely and just shake your head awkwardly. It's like our minds go into overdrive, isn't it? Suddenly we're analyzing every syllable, every grammar rule, every possible mistake we might make. But here's the thing, it's completely normal, and it happens to everyone. Absolutely, you're definitely not the only one experiencing this. So today we're going to explore how you can stop second-guessing yourself and simply communicate in English. You might be wondering what we mean by simply communicate without all that mental chatter. Well, we'll break it down for you. Let's start by imagining a situation where you've overthought your English response. Picture this. You're at work and your colleague asks, "How was your presentation yesterday?" You know the answer. It went really well. Simple enough, right? But suddenly your brain starts spiraling. Wait, should I say it went well or it was good? Do I need to use past perfect tense here? Should I add more details or keep it brief? Alex, I bet you've experienced this internal debate. Oh, countless times. And by the time you've analyzed all the possibilities, the moment has passed. Your colleague has moved on to another topic, and you're left thinking, "I definitely knew how to answer that. Why couldn't I just speak?" Exactly. The thing is, this mental paralysis is completely normal for language learners. But here's what we need to remember. You don't need to deliver a perfect response to communicate effectively. Actually, if you wait for the perfect words or the perfect moment, you might never join the conversation at all. That's so true. You know, even native English speakers stumble over their words constantly. We pause, we say and we forget what we were saying mid-sentence, and nobody thinks twice about it. Here's how a native speaker might actually respond. "Oh, the presentation. Yeah, it was. It went really well, actually. I was nervous, but, it turned out great." Right, it's not polished, but it's completely natural and authentic. Now imagine if someone said, "Yesterday's presentation was successful. I achieved my objectives effectively." Sure, it's grammatically perfect, but it sounds a bit artificial, doesn't it? Definitely robotic. So the key insight here is this. Release your need for perfection and just start communicating. It's all about developing your confidence and learning to trust your instincts. And you're probably wondering, but how exactly do I stop this overthinking pattern? How do I get my brain to just relax and let me speak? Well, here's the reality. You overthink because you care deeply about doing well. You want to express yourself correctly. And that's actually wonderful. But when that caring becomes overwhelming, it prevents you from speaking at all. It's similar to how children learn to communicate. They don't study grammar textbooks or worry about verb conjugations. They don't think, should I use the subjunctive mood here? Not at all. They simply express themselves, even when it's not grammatically perfect. They might say, "I go to the park," instead of, "I went to the park." But we don't criticize them. We understand and help them improve. Exactly, Maya. And what's the result? They improve constantly because they're not afraid to experiment. So here's what we're suggesting. You can adopt that same fearless approach. You can learn to communicate confidently even when your English isn't flawless. That's right. And here's something crucial. Don't wait until you feel completely fluent to start speaking confidently. Fluency isn't a prerequisite for communication. You develop fluency through the act of speaking. The more you practice expressing yourself, the more natural it becomes. So here's today's main message. Simply communicating doesn't mean speaking carelessly or without thought. It means not interrupting yourself every few words to double-check your grammar. Don't agonize over every word choice. Just express yourself. Just attempt it. Allow the words to flow naturally. Let's try another scenario. Imagine you're chatting with a neighbor who asks, "What are your plans for the weekend?" Now, instead of getting stuck thinking, should I say "I'm planning to," or "I will," or "I'm going to," and "is it in the weekend," or "on the weekend"? Alex, I know this kind of internal debate all too well. Absolutely, and you end up saying nothing because you're trapped in that cycle of self-doubt and analysis. But here's an alternative approach. Just respond with something like, "I want to visit my sister and maybe we go shopping together." Is it grammatically perfect? No. But is your message clear? Absolutely. And that's the real goal, to be understood, not to be flawless. You can always refine your grammar later. The most important thing is participating in the conversation. Think of it this way. Speaking English is like learning to ride a bicycle. You can read every manual about balance and momentum, but until you actually get on the bike and start pedaling, you won't develop the skill. The same principle applies to English. You have to open your mouth and practice speaking. Absolutely. And Maya, I'm sure you've encountered people who say things like, "I'll start speaking English when I'm fluent." But that's actually backwards thinking. You don't achieve fluency first and then start speaking. You achieve fluency by speaking regularly. Exactly, it's all about the practice process, not waiting for some perfect end result before you begin. And here's another important point. Making mistakes is not just acceptable, it's essential. In fact, mistakes are proof that you're pushing your boundaries and trying new things. When you're learning a language, every error represents progress. You're experimenting with new structures, and that's exactly how improvement happens. Let's be realistic, nobody achieves perfection. Exactly. Nobody expects perfection from you. And here's something fascinating. Native English speakers make errors constantly. They forget words, they pause mid-sentence, they say and throughout their speech. It's all part of natural communication. So don't stress about minor imperfections. Absolutely. Now, let's address something that causes problems for many learners: overthinking. You know that feeling when your mind goes into hyperdrive and you start worrying about grammar rules, verb tenses, or what people might think about your accent. It's mentally exhausting. I know exactly what you mean. It's like being in a conversation and your brain is simultaneously thinking, is this the correct word? Am I using the right tense? Should I pause here or continue speaking? You become so focused on the mechanics that you stop participating in the actual conversation. And that's precisely what we want to help you avoid. Overthinking is the primary obstacle that prevents you from speaking naturally. So the solution is to stop analyzing every detail and just communicate. It doesn't need to be perfect. Just allow your thoughts to flow into words. Right. So let's examine the first common trap that many learners encounter: mental translation from your native language. This is a big one. Translating word for word from your native language into English. It feels safe and familiar, but it's incredibly slow and often produces incorrect results because languages don't correspond perfectly. Let me share an example. Please do. Imagine you're Sophia from Spain. You're in London and need to buy a train ticket. The clerk asks, single or return? Now, in Spanish, Sophia would say, "Quiero un billete de ida y vuelta," but she tries to translate it literally into English. "I want a ticket of go and come back." Oh my, that's confusing. Sophia must have felt so embarrassed in that moment. Exactly. The queue behind her is getting longer, she's feeling flustered, and finally she just says, 2 tickets please, even though she only needs 1 return ticket. But don't worry, Sophia, we've all been in similar situations. We've all been Sophia at some point. It's completely understandable. But the key lesson is, stop translating word by word. Learn to think directly in English. Right. So how do we break this translation habit? Here's a practical technique. Look around your environment right now and start naming objects in English. White mug, wooden table, bright window. Begin with simple vocabulary. You can also practice creating mini narratives in your mind. For example, the woman walks quickly. She looks worried. She carries a large bag. These simple mental stories help you think in English rather than translating from your native language. Exactly. And create small challenges for yourself. For just 10 minutes, don't allow yourself to translate anything. If you can't remember a word, choose a simpler alternative and continue. Gradually, you'll train your brain to operate in English mode. It's all about creating new neural pathways in your brain. It might feel difficult initially, but trust the process. It becomes much easier with practice. All right, let's move on to the second trap that can prevent natural communication: grammar perfectionism. Ah, yes, the desire to sound absolutely flawless. So we pause constantly, we mentally review grammar rules, and suddenly we're frozen mid-sentence. We become so concerned with technical accuracy that we lose our ability to communicate naturally. Exactly. I've witnessed this with so many students. Let me tell you about David, an accountant from Germany. He's at a networking event, and someone asks, "What do you think about the new tax regulations?" Immediately, David's mind starts racing. Should I use present simple or present continuous? Do I say I think or I am thinking? What about subjunctive mood? Poor David. He's probably so focused on grammar rules that he can't formulate any response at all. That's exactly what happened. He finally whispers, I am thinking, the regulations are, they are complicated. His voice is barely audible, and the conversation quickly moves to someone else. David missed his opportunity to contribute meaningfully to the discussion. That's unfortunate, but here's the reality. You don't need grammatical perfection to have meaningful conversations. What matters most is whether people understand your message. You're not taking an exam, you're having a human interaction. Exactly. So instead of obsessing over perfect grammar, ask yourself, did the other person understand what I meant? Because ultimately, that's what successful communication is about. Yes. And you can use sentence starters to make speaking easier. For example, last weekend next month I will, or I have always. These frameworks give your brain some structure so you can focus on expressing your ideas rather than worrying about grammar. Absolutely. And when you make small grammatical errors, celebrate them. Every mistake proves that you're attempting something new. You're exercising your English skills. Give yourself credit for that effort. I like to think of mistakes as little achievements, evidence that you're actively speaking, learning, and growing. So don't fear grammar errors. Keep expressing yourself. Which brings us to the third common trap: fear of being judged. This is particularly challenging, worrying that people will laugh at your accent or correct you in the middle of a conversation. I think everyone has experienced this anxiety. You're speaking and suddenly you think, what if they can't understand my pronunciation? What if I say something that sounds funny? What if they mock my accent? I've definitely had those worried thoughts. Let me tell you about Chen, a graduate student from Taiwan. He's in Boston, standing at a food truck. The vendor smiles and waits for his order. Chen plans to say, "I'd like 1 beef taco and a bottle of orange juice, please." But then he hesitates, thinking, What if my pronunciation of orange sounds wrong? What if they laugh at how I say it? Oh no, what did Chen do in that situation? Well, Chen ended up just pointing at a random item on the menu and nodding. He got his food, but when he walked away, he realized he'd ordered a fish sandwich, which he doesn't even like. Later, he realized the vendor probably didn't care about his accent at all. It was his own anxiety that prevented him from speaking clearly. That's such a typical example of judgment anxiety. We worry intensely about others' opinions, but most of the time, people are simply focused on understanding us. And honestly, most people actually respect your courage to communicate in a second language. Exactly. Consider this: when someone speaks your native language and makes a mistake, do you laugh at them? Of course not. You appreciate their effort to communicate. The same thing happens when we speak English. People respect the attempt. Yes. And here's a useful strategy. Practice speaking to yourself in a mirror. Look at yourself and say, "Well done, keep going." It might feel awkward at first, but it's surprisingly effective for building confidence. And seek out people who are patient and encouraging, like study partners or conversation groups, where everyone understands that learning is a process. They'll support your progress, not criticize your mistakes. Definitely. And remember, most listeners are focused on your message, not your accent. Many of them are probably thinking, "I admire that they can speak multiple languages. I wish I had that ability." That's absolutely true. So next time you feel nervous about speaking, remember that your message is the most important element. Don't worry about perfection. Focus on connecting with people and enjoying the interaction. Exactly. Now, let's bring together everything we've discussed and think about practical application. We've covered overthinking, mental translation, grammar perfectionism, and judgment anxiety. These are all barriers that prevent natural communication, but we have effective strategies to help you overcome these obstacles. And that's what we'll explore in detail next time. But for now, here's your challenge. The next time you need to speak English, just do it. Don't analyze every word. Let your thoughts flow naturally. Don't worry about perfection, just communicate. Trust yourself and focus on the conversation. And remember, the more you practice speaking, the more confident you'll become. You're capable of this. That's all for today's episode of English Flow. We hope you found it helpful, and if you did, please subscribe, leave us a comment, and give us a rating. We'd love to hear about your own experiences with speaking anxiety and communication in English. And please share this episode with anyone who might benefit from these strategies. Until next time, keep speaking, keep learning, and most importantly, keep enjoying the journey. Goodbye for now.